Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. We all have people and things we care about, and with care can come anxiety. There are people about whom we care deeply, but then we can find ourselves worrying about them. We might have a job or a role that we love, but then we worry about what if something were to go wrong. We care about our security, financial and in other ways. But even when things are going fine, many still feel insecure. Anxiety can have its good side. It can be connected, for example, to our care for others and for ourselves. And let's face it, we can be justified in worrying about others and about the challenges we face. Anxiety can also give us a certain impetus to address some problem. But anxiety can also be costly, deeply costly to our inner lives. It can get in the way of prayer. It can also get in the way of our ability to realize the potential of who we most deeply are. It can undermine personal confidence and undermine relationships, introducing distrust and restlessness. Anxiety can have a pervasive and costly impact across pretty much all parts of our lives, practical, moral, and spiritual. I suspect that these dynamics connected to anxiety lie behind today's gospel reading. Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. There are three figures: Jesus, Mary, and Martha. There seem to be complex interpersonal dynamics going on. It's a family, after all, which spills over into breaches of social etiquette and politeness. Martha, who is getting the food ready without help from Mary, criticizes Mary because of the lack of help. We don't know if Mary lived with her sister Martha, but Martha certainly expected Mary to help out with the chores. Then Martha breaks a rule of social etiquette by asking Jesus, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me." What Martha is doing here is sometimes called triangulation by psychologists, where there is a disagreement between two sides and one of them brings in a convenient third party to take their side and thus tip the balance in their favor. We all have done this, and we've all probably had it done unto us, but Martha should not have done this to her guest. It's impolite. It's wrong, it's impolite to bring a guest just coming for a meal into some kind of internal family battle of some sort. Put on the spot, it's now Jesus' turn to take liberties with social etiquette. He tells Mary straight, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." So Martha's triangulation strategy has failed. Maybe Martha should have understood Jesus better. After all, Jesus has form when it comes to telling his hosts exactly what he thinks. A few chapters earlier, Jesus is in the house of Simon the Pharisee, who criticizes Jesus for letting a woman come and anoint his feet and dry them with her hair. But Jesus points out to Simon Peter that at least she looked after him better than Simon the Pharisee did. A traditional reading of the story of Martha and Mary is that it is about the active and contemplative life, roughly the difference between someone working in the world and someone living a life dedicated first and foremost to prayer. Since it is Mary who sits at the Lord's feet, who is praised for her single-minded attention to the Lord, and not the relatively busy Martha, a lesson often drawn from this gospel passage is that the contemplative life is inherently superior to the active life. There are indeed some things to be said in favor of this view. Yet many theologians have contested this interpretation of this particular gospel passage. Indeed, the medieval Dominican Meister Eckhart famously wrote a sermon in which he argued that it is Martha, the busy Martha, not Mary, who is the more spiritually advanced. It's a very kind of Eckhart thing to do, to be sort of unconventional, to say the least. But in fact, he makes some really important points about the spiritual and moral life. And I'm sure that many of his hearers, and perhaps ourselves too, have a secret kind of admiration for Martha and sort of secretly take her side. After all, she is the one doing the work. Perhaps, though, the text is not really about the contemplation versus the active life at all, that people have been trying to, as it were, shoehorn in kind of other kind of issues into this gospel passage. Certainly when it comes to the contemplation and the active life, both have their necessary place and can be seen as mutually complementary. On this view, the gospel passage presents us with a powerful reminder against getting so bogged down in the heaviness and shackles of anxiety with its related symptoms of perpetual business, restlessness, and clutter, with its ability to take our hearts and minds away from what is present right now and from the things that matter most. Martha is so, I'm afraid, taken up with her anxieties about the meal and about Mary's behavior, perhaps understandably so to some degree, that she nonetheless fails to be present to Jesus. She unwittingly fails to be a good host and is, in the end of the day, impolite by putting Jesus on the spot to side with her against her sister. On this interpretation, the gospel passage is concerned with the general spirit and dynamics present in both activity and the quieter aspects of life. The care worker busy helping the needy, the family member looking after a sick relative, or the employee doing their work with love and care, or the contemplative monk or nun in the silence of the monastery, can all be deeply present to God in their different ways. No life can be wholly taken over by contemplation. It would not be feasible. Even the strictest monastics need to carry out some tasks, and also, I suppose, to chill out, for want of a better way of putting it. But lives can, and often are, almost wholly taken over by business and distraction, with hardly a moment for quiet and contemplation. The price is that we end up living on the surface and dominated by varieties of anxiety and restlessness, whether acknowledged or not. We need a combination of both contemplation and activity, the relative proportions depending on the type of person and the type of life being led. There is much to ponder here. As ever, the Gospels touch on matters that are all too true to life. But let this Sunday's Gospel be for us a kindly invitation to reflect on the general shape of our lives and the dynamics within them, so that we may open our hearts to the voice of God, and so that we may live more truly able to work for what is good and to make space for what really matters.